Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to this FAQ video. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. I so enjoy our interactions online on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, and of course, the YouTube comments as well. It's just so amazing to interact with you guys, and I just feel privileged on the one hand, but also I just love your curiosity. You guys have really, really great questions, so I'm very happy to have this moment to answer them for you. So this question comes from Anne, who contacted me through my website, and Anne asked about progressions. So, on the one hand, though, first I want to say with progressions, before I delve into describing them, Anne specifically asked about watching the video based on your progressions, and so I will get to that in just a moment, but let me define actually what progressions are. So there are a lot of different ways to calculate progressions, okay? But ultimately it's based on the philosophical assertion that the chart evolves, and that while there are sort of things that we're constantly learning and ways in which we're being awakened, which speaks to the transits. So we're born, we take our first breath. That's the natal chart, okay? That's natal chart astrology. And then as the planets continue to move, they make aspects to that birth chart. And those are transits. So those are transits to the natal chart. One of the most common, most used, really the most used way to cultivate prediction, okay? To actually try to garner what the universe has in store for you coming up, how to take full advantage of whatever's coming up ahead for you. So we have that. That's natal chart astrology and transits. Then we have sort of the horoscopes, these general horoscopes that you watch. And I did create a video called watching, a couple of videos. One had to do with sun, moon, rising sign, watching horoscopes from that perspective. Another had to do with watching from the perspective of your North Node or Venus sign or whatever the case may be. And ultimately what this is looking at the sky from the perspective of your, let's say, your sun. So let's say you're watching for your sun sign. You are looking at the sky from the perspective of your sun, and whatever the other planets are doing in the sky, where your sun is, right? So what sign your sun is in is going to determine how the planets now are speaking to your sun. And so that's what sun sign astrology does. So you can watch these videos for your sun sign, because that is looking at the sky from the perspective of your sun and the sign it was in when you were born. You can watch it from your moon sign, because that is looking at the perspective of the sky today from the perspective that the moon was in the moment you took your first breath. You can watch the horoscopes for the rising sign, which is speaking more to the birth chart. If you know your rising sign, you probably know your natal chart, your birth chart. It has to do with the point most eastern, at the eastern horizon, very important point in astrology, which is more, delving into that more for another video. But it is very important, and pretty much all systems of astrology I've come across, the rising sign is a very important chart point. And so when you watch horoscopes from the perspective of your rising sign, ultimately what you're doing is watching how the planets currently are moving through your natal chart is a big part of it. With progressions, now as I said, there are a lot of different ways to calculate progressions. It has to do with the philosophical assertion that the chart is always evolving. One of the oldest ways of calculating, really like going way back, we see evidence of this going back like well over 1,000 years, is called the 1 degree method. So basically what it is you take your birth chart, and for every year that you're alive, every time you have a birthday, you add 1 degree to each planet. So that's the 1 degree method, adding 1 degree to each planet for every year that you're alive. Now that's just one way to calculate them. There are different calculation systems, but they're all rooted in the belief that the chart is not static. It isn't just that the birth chart is there and that's it. And whatever happens, whatever transits are happening, that's it. But it's based also on the belief that as these transits are happening, the birth planets themselves are evolving. They're changing. They're growing as well. They're going through their different stages. When the progressed, so let's say a progressed planet. So we've used the 1 degree method, let's say, okay? And let's say that one of the planets, let's say the moon and sun in particular, because those are very core planets, the moon and sun changes signs by progression. So you are, however old that you are, let's say you're born with the moon at 20 degrees of Sag. That means when you turn 10 years old, using the 1 degree method, and this is again using the 1 degree method. There are other methods as well. Some methods have a progressed moon changing signs every 2.5 years. And changing degree every month or so. But if we use the 1 degree method, it means that at 10 years old, you are going to have that moon move into a new sign, which means what you need to feel emotionally fulfilled is going to go through changes. I remember a student of mine years ago saying that she really got into progressions when all of a sudden, you know, she was quite young, but all of a sudden she wanted to be a mom. She really wanted to be a mom. She wanted to have a kid. And it was like the greatest thing that she ever did for herself was to have her daughter. And then she looks back and realizes that her progressed moon moved into the sign of Cancer. And that's what changed it for her. So she was always a Gemini. And then when she was in her early 20s, the sun moved into Cancer. She thought she would never want to have kids, never cared about kids. All of a sudden wanted to have kids. Best thing she ever did. And she's like, okay, yeah, I see. I'm like really enjoying this now. And it's all about the progression. I also remember a friend of mine, much older as well, and she was having her progressed sun moving to Cancer. And I was saying to her, look, your progressed sun is going to move into Cancer. Natally, she had her sun, so she was quite a bit older. Natally, she had her sun in Taurus, and she had all these Gemini planets. She felt that she didn't have a caring bone in her body. And I said to her, look, you're going to be asked to care. You're going to be asked to bring forward an element of actually having to provide care, to be a caregiver of sorts. And she kind of like laughed about it. And then like the next time I saw her, she said, you know, oh, I was talking to my friend, and my friend was like, you are not a caregiver at all. What was that about? And then I didn't see this friend for a lot of years. And I saw her like maybe 5 years later. And in the span of that time, shortly after I saw her the last time, her mother had fallen ill, and she had to become the caregiver for her mother. She had to resolve any issues that she had there with the tension in terms of her relationship with her mom. All very Cancerian themes she started having to bring about. Now, when I met her again, her mother had passed, and it had become all about the house. What was she going to do with the house? How was she going to create a home for herself now going forward, knowing she was moving into a different phase of life? So all of these very Cancerian themes started coming up for her. So it isn't that you abandon the natal chart, but that the progressions add an additional layer to your experience as well. Now, some people like to consider their progressed sun sign in terms of horoscopes. They like to watch the horoscope for their progressed sun as well as their birth sun as well. Absolutely, you can do that. Depending on how much you identify with evolution, honestly, this is what I've come to experience. Certain signs, in particular, I gotta say, it's the fire signs and the air signs tend to be a little bit more future thinking, right? They tend to be a little bit more about the next thing and the next thing, as opposed to earth or water. Now, all else being equal, of course, because look, Pisces is about communion with the collective. That's a very futuristic understanding in some respects, very elevated understanding. But all else being equal, not knowing your chart, if we were just looking at the sun, we could say that the air energy and the fire energy tends to be a little bit more forward. And so they're likely, because they're thinking about their evolution more, maybe a little bit more sensitive to progressions as they're occurring. And so for these people, yes. Now, for me personally, I will say, because I remember when my progressed sun changed signs, and, all of a sudden, a lot of things for me changed at that time as well. And now I look back and I go, of course, my son changed signs. Now, I was very young at the time, like very young. I think I was in my late teens at the time when this happened. And so at the time, astrology was just sort of something in the ether, but it was after that happened that I really started getting into astrology and New Age spirituality, and I just couldn't get enough. Like, all of this stuff awakened within me. And to this day, I will sometimes, like, as I'm, looking at the horoscopes of the sky, because I do these horoscopes for everybody, but then, of course, it's also for me as well. I'm learning along with you guys. So I'm considering the sky from the perspective of my son. But often, or at least enough for me to notice, I will sort of make note of, okay, my sun is currently in this sign, and I know that this particular planet is going to move over this particular degree where my progressed sun is right now. So it gives me an added layer of understanding of how the universe is trying to move me towards greater love and greater wisdom, how the universe is helping me to grow and become more, and to learn more about myself, and to really tap into a certain opportunity based on not only what's happening in the sky for my sun, but also what's happening on the level of my progressed sun as well, and my progressed planets in general as well. And I personally, I have utilized my progressed moon to look at major themes that have been really important in my life, and it's really been very helpful. Again, progressions are more of an intermediary, sometimes advanced technique as well, lots of different ways of calculating them. But I really find that for me, it's certainly added a lot to my practice when I started looking at progressions in my own life. Now, where it comes to clients, it depends. I sort of trust my intuition on that. In terms of, like, because really when you're with a client, if you're like sitting one-on-one with somebody for an hour, or I'm doing a personalized horoscope, which is like a short video of 15 minutes, really that time goes so fast, and you really want to get to their questions and make sure you're answering their questions, or I do. And so it depends on, like, really intuitively. And if I see something important coming up soon in terms of what's happening with the sun or what's happening with the natal moon, I might look at the progression as well. And of course, also if by special request, because sometimes I have people order personalized horoscopes and they say, can you look at my progressed moon, just changed signs? Can you tell me about that? What's coming up ahead in the next 2.5 years as my progressed moon moves through this sign or moves through this house? And so, of course, I'm really happy to do that with the specific requests. But it really comes down to, like, sort of utilizing your instinct. And even in my own life, because as an astrologer, you're always a student. So even in my own life, I will sort of look at my progression as I'm inspired to. But the birth chart remains primary for me personally. I always emphasize the birth chart above and beyond transits to the birth charts, conjunctions, transiting planets, conjuncting birth planets. Always look at above and beyond anything else. But of course, I also always say to my students, trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. Let them take you to the techniques that you're meant to learn about. Let your intuition guide you, because this is a practice of a lifetime, and there's always more to learn. There's always new ways to grow, and that's what makes it such an adventure, and that's what makes it really rewarding as well. Well, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much again for your interactions. I know I said Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, YouTube channel, comments as well, and all the other places you find me on social media. Please do keep those questions coming. You can connect with me to look at your own chart through personalized horoscopes. The link should be in the description. But of course, I'm so grateful for this moment with you. Everything I do is about affirming that the universe is wise and loving. That's my mission. That's the purpose of everything I do. Everything I put out in the world is to affirm this truth. The universe is wise and loving. And my hope is that in some way this video did that for you today. Well, thank you again so much for watching. Until we connect again, take care.